Michigan State's going to kick off its Big Ten tournament with the rematch against Oregon. What's different than the last matchup? What are we looking for in this Big Ten tournament? And a whole lot more. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Spartans. It's your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe. Get ready for more of this show tonight because we're going to be talking with Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Ducks. So we're going to get a deeper look inside of what has made this Oregon team so great ever since leaving Breslin Center. And let's start the conversation right there because we've noticed this season when a team plays Michigan State, their season usually kind of gets a little wobbly after that. Go ahead and ask Michigan how their season has gone since their first matchup against Michigan State. Go ahead and ask Illinois how a good stretch of their season after playing the Spartans went. It did not go well, and actually look back, and teams that played Michigan State in their next game as a whole were a little bit below 500 on the whole year. But here's the yin to the yang we just talked about, because on Thursday, Oregon and Indiana, since playing Michigan State earlier this season, have just been on a tour de force. Oregon, 8 straight wins now after just dispatching Indiana. And even Indiana, should they have won that game, well, they would only be sitting with 2 losses ever since beating Michigan State. So for 2 teams in the Big Ten, playing Michigan State was a get-right game. But no, here comes Oregon, and this what is making the conversation so different as opposed to last time. Because if you remember, those Ducks came into Breslin Center losers of 4 straight games. And like I just said, they've now won 8 in a row since leaving Breslin Center. Now, still, Michigan State is expected to win this game. That's what the computers are telling you. Ken Pom, Bart Torvik, both have this game as a 5-point-ish spread for your Michigan State Spartans. And I'm sure FanDuel, once they drop that line, it's not going to be too far off of that number. So what's been going well for Oregon ever since the game? Again, we're going to be talking with Spencer later today for a deeper look, but I did text him right after they beat Indiana. He said point blank, their offense is consistent with great depth, and the defense is much improved. The offense, it has been just very deep, very consistent, especially Nate Biddle. That center down low. Not only is he really solid on defense, but his offense has been picking up too in these last 8 games. He's taken double-digit shots in every game but this Indiana game ever since playing Michigan State. So the offense more centered around him. Their point guard, Keyshawn Bartholomew, who kind of he wasn't bad necessarily, but he was up and down throughout the season. He strung together 8 really solid, consistent games too. And of course got Jackson Shellstad, who went nuclear against Michigan State in that first half. And that was the reason Michigan State had to claw back from, a 14-point deficit at halftime or whatever it was. Now defense, unfortunately for us Michigan State fans, this has also gotten really good for Oregon too. They held Indiana to just 5 points in the last 8 minutes of this game on Thursday. It was very Michigan State-esque of just shutting off all the valves in crunch time. But, how many times have Michigan State done it in the last 5 minutes of a game, last 4 minutes? For Oregon to do it in the last 8 minutes of the game, and I watched the last 8 minutes too, it was mighty impressive. It also helps that Indiana missed a lot of free throws, especially front ends of one-on-ones, but nevertheless, really strong defense lately by the Ducks. Actually, if you take their last 8 games, their adjusted defensive efficiency sits at a smooth 93.6. Guys, if they had that number the entire season, that would be 12th best in the nation. So they have gotten a lot better on both sides of the ball ever since this first matchup. So what will be different than the first matchup too, especially for the Michigan State side of things? Well, it also answers a question of what do we want to see in this Big Ten tournament? And we're going to start with Jeremy Fears, who did not play in that game. Same with Xavier Booker. They were both out for that game in the first matchup a few weeks ago. So we want to see Jeremy Fears have a strong-ish Big Ten tournament. We're not going to ask the world for him. We're not going to ask that he put up 15 points, 8 assists, and no turnovers. No, we're going to have, reasonable expectations, but it has been a bumpy finish to the season, I guess. I mean, you could call it the end of his freshman year since, he's played, 30-some games since missing the last half of last season, whatever you want to call it. It's been kind of a end to the finish line. Not to say that it's all been bad. He was very strong against Iowa, put up 14 points. He was so-so in the home finale against Michigan, 6 assists, 3 steals, but he did have 5 turnovers. So, look, Michigan State is blessed to be a deep team. They are blessed to have, strong backup options, and I use air quote on backup, I should say, in Trey Holloman, who plays starter minutes, and he plays like a starter. And also Jace Richardson can take care of some of the ball handling duties. So even if Jeremy gets off to a slow start in any of these big tournament games, okay, well, you got an easy option B and option C. Still, I don't think it's going out of a limb to say that I'd rather my starting point guard, look composed, look assertive, look confident when he's taking these floaters, whatever. I feel like sometimes he's just in the lane, kind of puts up the shot, and it doesn't even seem like he really wants to, but he feels like he has to. I want to see that assertive Jeremy Fears that we saw back in January again. And I get it. Like, this is the longest he's played so far in his college career into a season. You're going to take your lumps, your bruises. Let's see if he can, find a rebirth of what he was in January here in these few games. Now, what else do we want to see in this Big Ten tournament? Whether it's 1 game, 2 game, or 3 games. Here's an obvious one. How about Jaden Akins from 3? Now, Michigan State as a whole, just to blow it up a little bit, they're shooting 34.7% from 3 in their last 5 games. And that would be good for 134th in the nation should they have had that number all season long. And that is all we've been asking. That's all Tom Izzo has been asking the entire season is, can they just be a decent, somewhat average 3-point shooting team? And we've all seen it. Guys that are usually good shooters throughout their career, your Jaden Akins, your Frankie Fiddlers, for example, not having strong years from behind the arc and just waiting for it to click. All right, it has as a team the last 5 games. I'm not saying that they're the Splash Brother Warriors, but still, if they could hum somewhere around a 35% clip from 3, that is a world of difference for this team, especially for Jaden Akins, who in his last 3 games is 10 of 28 from 3-point land. That is a good 35.7%. Okay, that's a far cry from the 28% that he was shooting at so far this whole entire season. And yes, 3 games is a small sample size, and we've seen the Jaden Akins roller coaster before. His whole 4 years of just going up and down. But if he could just be decent from 3, young man, oh my goodness gracious, we could look at March Madness and the big dance with the twinkle in both eyes. We're already starting to feel good about our Michigan State Spartans, but if Akins can unlock decent shooting, which he has shown in his career, okay, I try to not get excited. I dare you. And what else do we want to see? We want to see how this team handles a zone. Of course, now, I don't know how much we're going to be seeing a zone the rest of the way here. Oregon, we'll see if they ever deploy one. UCLA, I wouldn't expect much of a zone, and let's say they make it all the way till Sunday. Who knows? Can Michigan show you one? Will Michigan even be there? Will Illinois or Purdue show it to you? I don't know how often we're going to see a zone, but still, I would like to see one last dress rehearsal, even if it is just for a few possessions. Now, we got this question from Alex at Sheehan_sports on Twitter. If we play Indiana in our opening game of the Big Ten tournament, how would you like to see us attack their zone? Since they sink their 2 guards into the elbows, how can we overload their zone to open up the free throw line? Now, of course, Indiana isn't going to be playing in this game. This question was sent a few days ago, but I do wonder what it would look like if Trey Holloman is in the middle. Now, just, go ahead and entertain this for me, guys. Now, he's got a good mid-range game more times than not. We've seen it go to the wayward, but, we've also seen him swish these 15, 17-footers constantly. He makes good decisions with the ball. And maybe I'm going to hone in on that specifically because we've seen Cone Carr in the middle. Other teams, okay, you're going to put him in the middle. We're going to force him to make decisions. He's not like an elite shooter, per se, and same with Frankie Fiddler. We've seen him in the middle, which I thought was going to work. Did not look smooth against Iowa. We've seen Booker in the middle. Yeah, no thanks. Jackson Kohler at times we've seen, which was okay, but I do like the idea of putting a guard in the middle there, just both because of the vision, what they could do from the mid-range, and also having Trey in the middle would let Jace run around, be your kick-out option from 3. Or that's the guy that they're setting screens for to run the baseline and eventually swing the ball all the way to that corner 3 where Jace is fine. If you want to really shine an example of that, Andrew Talks Hoops on Twitter of Spartans Illustrated, a great video about how to beat the zones. So I would not have Jace in the middle, although they have done that at times this season and it did work to some success. I think he's really better off ball in these situations, whether it's running off screens in the background, whether it is sliding into open gaps. Hey, he's a dynamic player with the ball in his hands or without it. I like Trey, too, being the captain up front. We'll see if they even see a zone, guys. We'll see if they even go that route if it is a zone. It's just got to look better than it did against Iowa. Really thought they made good strides in the zone offense. And then Iowa, it was just more of that swing the ball around the perimeter for 25 seconds. And here comes a fadeaway three, 6 feet behind the arc. So you guys know the story about the zone. It's been very up and down, but hey, reason to believe that it could work. All right, guys, we're going to be back here in a hot second. But first, need to talk your ears off about Nissan. That's right, guys. Now, our friends over at Nissan, they are all about the stats just like we are because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are at an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring the off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings the power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. Also, guys, 'tis the season for a great time to be on FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Or, guys, partake in my favorite now March Madness tradition. I did this with my brother and my cousin last year, sat down in a sports bar, and we were all about the race to 10-point bets. Either just standalone or parlay them. It made for an electric night last year. So go ahead, guys. Like, they have all sorts of props, futures, game lines, whatever you need. FanDuel has most likely got it. It's fast and easy. The app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, and there's no waiting around. One of my favorite parts about FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long with America's #1 sportsbook. All right, who's ready to hear the corniest thing you've ever heard? Because we've got a lot of mailbag questions the last week. You guys always deliver the goods when I come crawling to you, asking for questions. A lot of them were about Jace Richardson. So here's segment 2, which we have named All About That Jace. That's right. Shout out to Megan Trainor right there. All right, Jax is going to start us off. What do you think Jace ate for breakfast every game day the last 3 weeks to play this good? I got to tell you, Jax, I think he ate the same thing. I think he just ate his Pop-Tarts, his Cheerios, his Eggo waffles. Who knows what it is? But while he was eating this very important meal of the day, I think he was also reading, perhaps listening to people, maybe like myself, probably not me directly, but people like me, saying that, Michigan State really needs a guy. Okay, they've really hit a rut. There's no one that they could go to late in the game. There's no one that could, pull them out of a drought. Well, that's what he has done. That is what he has done. Like, he has been the guy. He's been assertive. He's also gotten the minutes to allow him to do all this as well. Let's not get it twisted. But not just what did Jace eat, but I think it's worth bringing this up. What did Jeremy Fears eat for breakfast that got him so sick that he had to miss the Oregon game where Jace was plugged into the starting lineup, and a move that Michigan State has never looked back from? Okay, now obviously Jeremy is still in the starting lineup. It was Trey that had to take a back seat, but once they saw Jace in that starting lineup, and once he dragged Michigan State to the finish line with the win against Oregon, well, that's been the story right there. I mean, he's been the starter ever since. Tell me Michigan State hasn't played better ever since that has happened. So it's a combination of, probably just reading more of the headlines while he is eating breakfast. And on a serious note, whatever it was that Jeremy was sick with, obviously it's nice to see that he's healthy, but that kind of changed the season, didn't it? Now, Scott writes in, is Jace the best rebounding guard since Charlie Bell? Way to roll back the clock, Scott. I love that question. So I did go back to look at Charlie Bell's per 40 numbers. So because rebounds per game isn't really a true stat, if you're a guy that only plays 22 minutes and the guy that you're being compared to plays 35, obviously he's going to be, a little higher up on that stat sheet. So this is, okay, what if you took the numbers, drew it out over 40 minutes? What would it look like? Charlie Bell's numbers as a guard per 40 minutes would average 6.7 rebounds per game. Now, Jace Richardson, he's been a strong rebounder, especially as a guard, especially as what some think an undersized guard. Jace is averaging 5.1 rebounds per 40 minutes, which is still really good, but that's still almost 2 rebounds short of what Charlie Bell was doing back in the early 2000s. Now, I do want to blow this out a little better because, it's not entirely fair to compare Jace to the greatest arguably rebounding guard of all time. Let's do it in recent history. We mosey on over to barttorvik.com. And what I like when it comes to rebounding is rebounding percentages. How many times are you getting the ball when you're on the court? That's a rebounding percentage, essentially, okay? Now, it gets a little, I don't want to say dicey, I guess, but there's a lot of fluidity with, what position Jace plays, right? And what position all these other guys played with. Because on barttorvik.com, you could plug in, all right, how was Michigan State's best pure point guards? There's scoring point guards, combo guards, wing guards. So there's 4 different subcategories of guards there that you got to look at. Now, for point guards, he would only be behind senior Denzel Valentine, junior AJ Hoggard, sophomore Cassius Winston, and junior Tum Nairn getting in some rebounds here. Look at him go. Now, if you just have the combo guards, which is where Jace is classified under, which I agree with, he would be the best defensive rebounder as far as rebounding percentage goes since at least 2008 at 11.1%. Now, why I say 2008? That's as far back as Torvik goes, so it could be even further than that. But if you just take the combo guards, so not point guards, not wing guards, he would be the best defensive rebounding Spartan since at least 2008. Now, if you want to rope him into like a wing guard, he would be 16th overall amongst wing guards. He'd be behind guys like Denzel Valentine, Aaron Henry, Darrell Summers, Jaden Akins, just to give you an idea of what they classify as a wing guard. But you know what? That's a long way and a lot of numbers of saying that, yeah, he's a really good rebounder. So, of course, we see his three-point percentage. We see how he can finish in the lane. We see how crafty he is getting inside the zone at times, kicking the ball out, just being overall smart as a freshman. How about a dog on the rebounding, too? He really is the full package. Now, I know we said we're going to talk about Jace this entire segment. I do want to have a side note here because time to time throughout the season, we have been talking about Jackson Kohler and how elite he has been at defensive rebounding, offensive rebounding, as far as it goes to percentages, of course. I do want to check in because at the end of the regular season, his defensive rebounding percentage, 26.5%. That is unbelievable. That's actually third best amongst Michigan State players since 2008, only behind Draymond Green's senior year. And right now he's 0.1% behind Marcus Bingham's senior year. I did not expect to see his name when I looked this up, but there he was. Now, offensive rebounding, still elite. He's at 15.3%. That is behind Nick Ward's freshman year, Nick Ward's sophomore year, and Matt Costello's senior year. Now, both would be good for top 20 in the Big Ten for the last 17 seasons of hoops. So, yeah, when we say Jackson Kohler is an elite rebounder, we're not just saying that because we're big Michigan State fans, or we're just saying that to blow smoke up his you-know-what, just out of the kindness of our hearts. No, the numbers back it up, too. He is an elite rebounder. All right, now let's get back to the Jace questions because Connor wrote in, would you rather go out in the Sweet 16 and keep Jace or make a Final Four and lose in the semis? Guys, call me a wimp or call me correct. I'm excited to see how many people stand on what side of the aisle here, but I am taking the Final Four all day long. I understand that this is maybe Izzo's last best chance to get national title number 2. Okay, I fully understand that, but I say the Final Four for 2 reasons. One, okay, if you tell me that, hey, by the end of the year, you're Big Ten champs, you get a Final Four, it'd be the 7th time Michigan State has actually done that in the same season, and, well, of course, it'd be Izzo's 9th Final Four banner. Like, that means something. That's still a tremendously successful season. We're unlike just showing up to the Sweet 16. Don't get me wrong, we'd celebrate it if they win 2 games in the opening weekend, but it's not the end-all be-all for this program. Now, the second reason is that nothing in life is a guarantee. I mean, especially in the world of college basketball, right? Jace comes back, okay, well, he's going to be a Big Ten Player of the Year candidate, maybe even National Player of the Year candidate. Michigan State still returns a lot from this year's team, where they should be squarely in the top 10, if not the top 5 going into next year, okay? But the tournament gets really weird. Just asked, not to bring up bad memories in such a joyous time of Michigan State fandom, but ask the 2016 team how easy it was to make a tournament run with one of the nation's best players, the National Player of the Year in Denzel Valentine. Ask the 2012 team, okay, how easy it is to make a deep run with the Big Ten Player of the Year in Draymond Green. They got aced out in the Sweet 16. I would take the 100% sure thing, which would be another Final Four banner, which would be banner number 2 this season, over what? It would be like a 5-10% chance that this team could make a run that would jump over a Final Four banner next year. Again, maybe I'm a coward. Maybe I'm a wuss, but I do like the sure thing in life. And if you're telling me the sure thing is a Final Four banner on top of your Big Ten champion banner, look, losing the Final Four, it would hurt in the moment. Not here to tell you that we get on the show and start smiling immediately, but I think after 24 hours, we'd all look back and say, what an incredibly successful season and another notch in Tom Izzo's belt. I mean, second national title, escaping him again, be damned. He's still going out as one of the greatest college basketball coaches. I think he's done enough personally. So that's where we're at for that. Guys, we're going to talk about how much you actually care about this Big Ten tournament, because I put a poll out there and a lot of you guys responded to with good answers. But first, need to talk everyone's ears off about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Now, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop managing your money and stop just managing your money, of course, and start building wealth. Now, guys, it's so easy. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts too. Like, how easy does that get? You set goals, stay on the same page without all the stress, thanks to Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, as we set off into the rest of the Big Ten tournament here, I was curious because we've had the conversation with, both fans and media alike that it's cool. It's a fun tournament. I don't know how much people really care about it. So I was actually curious to hear from Michigan State fans how much you guys actually care about the Big Ten tournament. So we did a very scientific poll. That's right. I went to Twitter, or X. I don't really care what you call it. And I said, all right, MSU basketball fans, give me your input. How much do you care about this upcoming Big Ten tournament? The options were truly do not care, I only care a little bit, I care a whole lot, and the last option, losing ruins my weekend. All right, guys, the winner was I only care a little bit at 54.5%. I care a whole lot at 25%. I truly do not care was the third best option. And then losing ruins my weekend at just a little over 9%. So truly do not care and losing ruins the whole weekend. We're very neck and neck. But guys, at the end of it, 65% of you were on the lower end of caring, 35% on the higher end. Now, the comparison I used the other day, which I will say again, is that the reason I'm just so about it is because Michigan State just wrapped up this ultra marathon and came in first place, right? And of course, I'm referring to the Big Ten regular season, the banner that actually means the most in the Big Ten conference. What's coming up? It's the Ironman Triathlon. Okay, that's the big dance. So this thing in the middle here, I think I called it the turkey trot the other day. It's like this little fun 5K, 10K race, but if you win it, cool, I guess. But if you don't, you're not going to lose sleep over it, because this pales in comparison to what you just wrapped up and what you're about to set off on. Okay, so it's, I only care a little bit. Now, I've also said this too, and Ben wrote in this as well. So Ben wrote it best over there. He said, it's B for me, only cares a little bit, but come Friday, I just know I'll be sitting in front of that TV screaming go green and wanting death for anybody opposing MSU. I know that's going to happen when the clock strikes noon tomorrow, that I will want to see Oregon pulverized by our Michigan State Spartans. Now, it wouldn't be the end of the world if they do lose because of health. You get to save some wear and tear on the legs. But Dylan also did bring up a really good point, too, as to maybe why I don't really have so much fire about the Big Ten tournament. Dylan wrote in, no matter what happens in the Big Ten tournament, we are coming out as a 2 seed. With this team's youth, balanced minutes, haven't won anything since 2019. I would assume they'll fight hard to win. I feel confident either way that they'll be rested and ready in game 1 of March Madness. So there's actually 2 things that are a good point there. Worrying about wear and tear, isn't that big of a deal with a team that goes 10 deep like the Michigan State Spartans. Now, health is still a concern. Go ahead and ask Duke and Cooper Flagg how they feel about him playing in the ACC tournament, which they hold to a higher regard down there in the conference, but whatever. Injuries can still happen. But I do like what he mentioned about you're going to be locked into a 2 seed. And that is true, because even if you do win the Big Ten tournament, we reached out to our top bracketologist mind out there, Joe Cook-Sugart of 131 Sports. He said even if you run the table, it's still a 15-20% chance of getting a 1 seed. You're going to need a lot to happen around you. So there's that. Now, guys, we also heard from Jay Crum. He said, I'm fine as long as we don't lose Friday. If we lose Saturday or Sunday, I could truly care less. Okay, there we go. Like that. But then Coach Rob, on the contrary, the correct way to look at it is excited to watch this team compete for potentially 3 more games, but wouldn't be upset if they lose at any point except for the championship game. They lose in the quarterfinal and semi, so what? We get much needed rest going into the tournament. Championship game, we want to win. I agree wholeheartedly with that. Either lose Friday, just get it over with, get rested up, get your mind right for the big tournament, or if you're going to make it all the way to Sunday, well, you might as well and better just win the whole damn thing. We didn't just waste 3 games worth of legs for you to fall 1 game short. Like, if you're going to be in front of the banner, well, just gotta go ahead and win it, guys. Now, I was also curious. I did look up if there's any correlation of Michigan State winning the Big Ten tournament, which they've done 6 times, and deep March Madness runs. Now, Michigan State has won the Big Ten tournament 6 times. They've gone to the Final Four 3 of those times. So, not an incredible correlation, but a good enough of one to, just think that, yeah, it's not going to be the end of the world. They're not going to drain their batteries entirely if they do go and win this thing. So, yeah, let's take that for what it's worth. Sleazy F Baby. It's a great name, by the way. Sleazy F Baby writes in, I'm going to watch all the games and be invested in them in the moment, but even if they lose on Friday, it's not that big of a deal. More worried about the bigger tournament. So there you have it, guys. A lot of great answers, so thank you for everyone that reached out and voted in that poll. And there's also one more poll that we have to get to. Okay, this is important. I should have kicked off the show with this. Jason wrote in at lockedonspartans@gmail.com. I finally broke down and bought new MSU socks since my old MSU socks are now down to 6 strings and only the U is legible. The question is, should I include new socks with the lucky wardrobe before the tournament starts, or should I wait until the end of the season and keep wearing the same socks I've been wearing during every basketball and football game for the last 22 years? That's tough. That's tough. There's been a lot of great memories the last 22 years of Michigan State fandom. The Rose Bowls, the Final Fours, the Cotton Bowls, the great rivalry wins, the dramatic top 25 wins, what have you. I'm not saying that it is bad to be a Michigan State fan. It's actually quite delightful being a green and white fan. But in the last 22 years, I do see an absence of a national title. Could that be what puts this team over the edge? Maybe the rest of Jason's wardrobe is spot on, but maybe it's the socks that need changing out. Now, I did bring that up on Twitter. I said, guys, help me out with Jason's conundrum here. Does he start wearing the new socks immediately, or is it one last hurrah for the old pair? It was an 80-20 split. 80% of you said he's got to keep wearing the old socks. 20% of you said, no, time to break in the new bad boys here. Now, some suggested even wearing one on each foot, which that could mean getting aced out in the tournament immediately against a 15 seed, or buzzsaw your way to the national title. Maybe that's the correct combination to do. But I think he should do here, do a little A/B testing. Okay? Wear one pair for the first half of this Oregon game, and then switch pairs at halftime, and then see which half went better. And let's say that we're all lucky enough, Michigan State does win this game against Oregon. They get to play Saturday. That's a bigger sample size you get. Old socks in the first half, new socks in the second half. Let's say they make it the championship game. Same thing. Old socks first half, new socks second half. And if they win the whole thing, well, I'm afraid you're going to have to do that the rest of the tournament, the next hopefully 6 games after that. Old socks in the first half, new in the second. But if they get aced out here in the first game, second game of the Big Ten tournament, do the math, find out which halves were better, and then go ahead and rock those socks the rest of the tournament. All right, guys. Again, we're going to be back here for a smaller episode tonight with Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Ducks. But until then, guys, take care of yourselves. Enjoy watching Championship Week. Love you all. Go Green.